Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault. And as Sun Tzu said, all battles are won and lost before they are ever fought. I think that's really important to take in mind when it comes to battling for our Second Amendment rights. Because if we're not approaching this battle and this fight from the right perspective, we've already lost. And in my opinion, I think we're losing our gun rights all the time. You guys know in general, I'm pretty pessimistic about the future of the Second Amendment. And it's not because there's many people out there, and many of you, that aren't passionate about the Second Amendment or aren't willing to fight for the Second Amendment and donate your time and resources to people that are fighting for the rights in the courts and in the legislatures. But the problem that I personally see with all these battles that we are up against is that the vast majority of people are fighting this from an immature and unintellectual standpoint. When it comes to wars and battles, often there are different tiers of people that are required to fight. You have the people at the ground level, the infantry, the people that are actually hands-on doing the things that need to be done. But then up at the top, you have the commanders and generals, the people that are many miles away from the battlefield, but they're the ones that are plotting. They're the ones that are looking at all the pieces on the board and how they are moving. And they have to think long term, where the person in the trenches is thinking short term. They have to take that hill. They have to take out that post. But the generals are thinking, well, we might have to sacrifice this land or this objective to win the greater battle and eventually the greater war. One of the things I have always respected the anti-gunners for is that strategy. They have people at the top that donate time and money and resources and social media experience to fighting a culture war against the Second Amendment. They know full well they will not get the Second Amendment repealed, most likely in our lifetime. But through little actions and piecemeal, they can do it. They can change the culture. They can change the perspective of every generation until gun ownership is irrelevant and very easy to ban through legislative means, regardless if the Second Amendment exists or not. They have a well thought out strategy, and people are fighting their battles at all levels. You have the people in the streets that are protesting with the signs, but you also have the people like George Soros or Michael Bloomberg at the top that are the generals and the commanders that are telling them what to do. What does our side have in the Second Amendment community? Well, from all that I can tell, we have a lot of very passionate people. And I know some of you are already typing in the comment section, "The ATF can't create law, shall not be infringed." And that's great. You're a foot soldier in this battle. But is that doing anything to really protect our rights? Are you changing the culture? You know, there are many laws in this country that are written that are not enforced because culturally they would not be accepted. So for example, Tim Pool, who's a commenter that I often listen to, talks about a law in the state of Florida where women are not allowed to skydive on Sundays. However, no police officer is going to enforce that law. It's absolutely ridiculous. From a cultural standpoint, it makes no sense and we would not tolerate it. But because of that culture, the law is on the books and people ignore it. Well, just like the Second Amendment is in our Constitution, and we have many laws, both pro and anti-gun. If the culture says it's perfectly okay to ban these things, well, that's what's going to happen, even if you are screaming the ATF can't create laws or shall not be infringed. We are missing the commanders and the generals in this fight. And I am here not to give any solutions or to endorse anybody specifically, but rather have you as a fighter in this battle, a fighter for the Second Amendment, to ask yourself, are we fighting this from the right perspective? Are we doing this the right way? And are the actions that you're taking really beneficial? You know, when it comes to changing culture, we have to do it from a politically correct standpoint. I'm not saying politically correct from using the right terminology. I'm just saying from a less abrasive standpoint. Many people in society that have no stake in the gun debate, that can be easily swayed one way or the other, can see one side saying, we want to protect our children. And it makes sense to them. Of course, we all want to protect our children. We want to get these weapons of war off our streets. Okay, I feel like that's a good thing. I don't know what a weapon of war is, but okay, I think you got me on this. I'll go ahead and support you. Well, I wonder what the other side is saying. Let me see what they say. Shall not be infringed. The ATF can't create law. Okay, boy, you sound a little bit panicked and a little bit crazy. I think I'm going to go with this anti-gun side because they seem to be a little bit more rational. Yeah, even though they're not rational because their standpoint and their perspective comes from a place of emotion, and the people on the pro-gun side, our side, really do have history to back us up, but because so many of the foot soldiers in this battle are so full of animosity and anger, it turns off the people in the center, and thus we lose the culture war. As a YouTube creator, I see this all the time. Anytime I talk about gun laws, or even compromise, and I'll come back to that in just a moment, I get all those people once again saying, you're a traitor, I can't believe this. Or when they talk about a certain politician that might come out and say, we need to repeal the NFA, we need national reciprocity, we need to get rid of all assault weapons bans. However, I think a safe storage law would be okay. People will go, you can't support him, he's a traitor, we're not giving up 1 inch. And then, of course, that person doesn't get to hold office or doesn't get the votes, and then an actual anti-gun person comes in and advances the ball in the anti-gun direction. Because so many people on our side, and maybe some of you are like this, are Second Amendment absolutists. It is absolute victory or nothing else. Getting back to the term compromise, this is a word that is thrown around in the gun debate all the time, but is often misused. Anti-gunners always ask pro-gunners, why won't you compromise? Well, the reason is compromise means you give up something, and we give up something, and we come to a mutual agreement. But often in the gun debate, compromise means pro-gunners give up something, and anti-gunners just give up something that they want to a lesser extent. So let's just say they want to ban all assault weapons. Well, the compromise is they get to ban most assault weapons. That's not really a compromise. I've asked in many of my Texas Gun Vault poll questions of the week, would you compromise to get something you want in the gun debate? And I've thrown this one out. I said, what if we got rid of assault weapon bans across the country? What if we repealed the NFA? What if we repealed most of the 1968 Gun Control Act? What if we repealed magazine bans? What if we did all these things, but in return, all you have to do is give the anti-gunners a safe storage law, something that really can't be enforced. And I've had people in those debates saying, I would not take that deal because it means we're giving up something. If we don't get absolute victory, then I'm not for it. And I just kind of scratch my head. Anti-gunners have been working against the Second Amendment for almost 100 years. Well, really longer than that, but legislatively for about 100 years, since the passage of the 1934 National Firearms Act. They've never stopped, and they've never slept. They know that this is a battle that cannot be won overnight. While they do want absolute victory, they're willing to win that battle through piecemeal, one little battle at a time. But the pro-gunners, many of you watching this video, you don't think about the long-term strategy. If you're willing to give up something, anything, well, you're a traitor. You think if a politician says, I would make this compromise for right now, even though I plan on hopefully getting it overturned, or it advances the ball generally in the pro-gun direction more, you won't do it. You won't vote for them. You won't play along because it has to be absolute victory today or nothing else. Therefore, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm not going to play this game. And of course, the anti-gunners come and like, okay, well, they're not going to play ball, but we will. And they start to change the culture and they get people to support them. And slowly but surely, our Second Amendment is chipped away at. Because the people on the pro-gun side play the short game. They don't want to play the long game. They don't strategize. They don't listen to the people that maybe we can consider the commanders in this battle and go, hey, we have to have a long-term strategy. We're not going to repeal the NFA this year or next year or maybe the next decade. But if we change the culture, we can. Maybe in 30 years, maybe in 40 years, but it can be done. So as a content creator that sometimes tries to come to you guys and say, here are some ideas. I'm not saying my ideas are the best, but this is what I'm hearing people talk about. This is what's being proposed. Or let's talk about a strategy together. Maybe we can give up a safe storage law because it would make all these people in the center of the debate go, ooh, that's a nice warm feely thing, when in actuality we all know none of that can be enforced. But I'll tell you what, why don't we take suppressors off the NFA? They're not used in crimes, so we get suppressors, you guys get your safe storage law, and let's let some time play out. Well, of course, the safe storage law could never really truly be enforced, and as suppressors become more commonplace, people could go, hey, you see how these aren't really a problem? Why don't we do short-barreled rifles and short-barreled shotguns? They're not really used in crimes anyway. It's mainly handguns. And people in the center that we need to vote for our side would go, you know, they're absolutely right. They got rid of suppressors off the NFA. Wasn't a big deal. Let's take the next step. And through piecemeal and small wins, we can regain our gun rights back. So this commentary isn't to endorse anyone, any political platform, or anything in general. It's just an idea to ask you guys to think for yourselves, to ask, am I a problem or am I a solution? If all you can do is go on to YouTube channels and comment and say, the ATF can't create law, shall not be infringed, are you really helping the cause? Or are you trying to come up with solutions and support people who are the commanders that are thinking long term? Yes, we need the foot soldiers, the people to go out and protest, stand outside of courthouses and legislative sessions with pro-gun signs, American flags, and the Second Amendment is important to us. But we also need the people that are thinking long term. Many content creators get a lot of clicks and make a lot of money by stirring people up that are just saying shall not be infringed and the ATF can't create law. Even if the ATF can't create law based on the Constitution, if it's culturally acceptable for them to do so, they will. No amount of screaming on the internet will prevent it. We have to win the Second Amendment battle through the culture, through being good people and being good ambassadors for what we believe and what we stand for. So when you guys go out and comment on my videos, comment on other videos, interact with people that aren't necessarily in the gun community, realize that you are representing us, and we have to win these battles little by little. And we have to show people that aren't in the firearms community that we care, that we're compassionate, we have logic and history on our side. We have to speak through logic and reason. We have to speak calmly instead of yelling, getting upset, and throwing temper tantrums. Because that's what I see online right now. I see people that are on our side, that are passionate, and I appreciate that, and I think it's fantastic. But their passion leads to hysteria. All they can do is yell, and whatever they type has 5 or 6 exclamation points after it, and everything is uppercase letters like they're screaming. But it doesn't do anything. It doesn't change the culture. It doesn't convince anybody in the middle to come to our side. And it definitely doesn't make the other side of the aisle want to come together and work with us. And when they have the seats of power and can pass these things, they don't want to talk to you. They don't want to talk to me because they already know what they're going to get. A bunch of yelling. They're going to get a bunch of, the ATF can't create law. I will not comply. Well, that's fine. I'm not saying you should comply. I'm just saying that perception is reality, and the way that people perceive you can change their opinion and sway the culture. You have to be good ambassadors for the Second Amendment. So ask yourself every day, how are you helping the Second Amendment? Are you a good ambassador? And most importantly, are you a good ambassador for the Second Amendment because you're a good person? If the answer is yes, you're doing your part, and we can win this battle in the long run. So once again, have a little bit of self-reflection. Be a good person, a good ambassador, and let's change the culture. Because yelling and typing on a YouTube channel that the ATF can't create a law and that you won't comply and shall not be infringed doesn't mean those things are not going to happen. It doesn't mean that the ATF's not going to pass rules. It doesn't mean they're not going to pass more gun laws. Just because you type it on my channel or type it on another channel, you have to do something more substantial. And I hope you make the decision to do that as a good person and a good ambassador. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And do you agree or disagree? Are we losing this battle because we as a gun community look like we're crazy? I hope not, but a lot of people in it sure make us look crazy. So, as always, thanks for watching.